needs is for money to be collected and money to be given to these people for them to rebuild their houses. We are talking about an area that was destitute to begin with. We need to start thinking about not just flood relief, but in the long term, we have to think about poverty alleviation.
Yeah.
And it is only going to happen if this government and subsequent governments show the concerted will to make the change happen.
Yeah.
And part of that has to be us. When I say us, I mean we, the citizens of Pakistan.
And also,
will not absolve
right,
responsibility for all of us.
There's also some, I'm not sure if our guests from the United Nations are finding this interesting or relevant at all, but please bear with us because these are some of the problems that we need to discuss. For example, Quatrina, there's been word about the ANP and MQM asking about a separate flood relief fund to be made with the help of the parliamentarians, but that has not been encouraged, and no help or a kind of sensitivity has been shown towards this very crucial issue from the representatives of many of the people who have suffered in those floods, right?
Waqas, when you're out here, it doesn't matter where somebody is of what ethnic origin. In many cases, a lot of the victims here in southern Sindh are of the Hindu community. As far as I'm concerned, they're citizens of Pakistan with equal rights and should have equal access.
Yeah.
I totally disagree with the MQM and the ANP trying to form separate funds. We need one national fund. We need everyone to start contributing to that, and we need a proper distribution, transparent mechanism. We can change the lives of the people in Sindh, not just by helping them through this crisis, by giving them a lifeline. We need to give them a life. And that's what angers me, and I will be very blunt. I am angry at the poverty that I'm seeing in areas that are not even affected by the flood. Just in the cities I've passed through, the areas I've passed through, Tendojam, for example, where the flood waters are very minimal, if at all, there's abject poverty everywhere. There's just no excuse for any country where people can drive and have multiple land cruisers and vehicles of that nature, which that could transform the life.
And the kind of life we see in Islamabad, right, of those people.
Islamabad and Sindh and Lahore. I mean, you name it, and you see that wealth everywhere.
And having said that, what to talk of the people who have been hit by floods? I'm just curious, Mr. Damiani, how do you look at this aspect that we are discussing right now? How do the Pakistanis themselves respond to this? Because I ask you that because, of course, you're in close liaison with many of the local agencies, organizations here who are trying to play a part in floods. How do you look at the response of the Pakistanis themselves?
Look, I was here last year during the floods and I'm here this year. I have to recognize a lot of participation by the local NGOs, the CBOs, the very root-based organizations, enthusiasm, dedication. This is what I've learned from them. Now, of course, we focus on bringing help to those who are in need. We have our horizon is that we have to operate with the means we have with the partners, a lot of partners, local partners that are really enthusiastic. They are really competing to do better. This is my experience. Other considerations are beyond my mandate, and I'm a foreigner, I'm your guest in this country, but the experience with the people is really exciting.
Right, and Mr. Paulsson, would you agree with what Mr. Damiani is saying?
Yes, absolutely, and I think it's important to say that, like I mentioned, we work with partners, and the majority of our partners are national NGOs and extremely capable in delivering this assistance together with us.
All right. When we return from...
that, because if I can pop in again, I would endorse that the people who are working are doing a magnificent job. I have seen Pakistani NGOs out here, not in as large numbers as is needed. I think the response is late. That's my opinion from what I've seen. But the point I'm trying to drive home is that it has to go beyond NGOs. It has to come to our society, our entire country. The way we galvanized for the earthquake in 2005, I saw half of that response in last year's earthquake and last year's floods, and half of that response in this year's floods. So the interest and the commitment of the Pakistani people is nowhere close to what it was in 2005. We talk about international donor fatigue. Perhaps our people are feeling local donor fatigue. But the point is, at the end of the day, it's our country, and we have to step up and bat first.
I mean, the response from the Pakistanis last year was quite exemplary, Quatrina. I'd seen myself in southern Punjab when I was there, and how people themselves were, loading small boats and bringing trucks with ration, food and medicines. But remember the way media covered the problem last year. At the risk of sounding repetitive, I want to ask you again, would you still say that people have not been able to respond because they were never ever told about the problem that has occurred in Sindh?
I think that part of it has been that there was very late realization of this magnitude of the flood in Sindh. First of all, of course, it didn't happen as fast as a flash flood. An earthquake always engenders instant sympathy. We're talking 75,000, 78,000 people dead in 40 seconds in 2005. The floods last year killed more than 2,000 people over a span, the bulk of which was, of course, in northern Pakistan, over a period of 3 weeks. The floods in Sindh have killed 300 plus people. And I should point out that one of the things I've been told is that many of those deaths occurred in flood-related accidents or issues. They were not people who drowned as such. Most of the villages I've gone into, I have not met anybody who said that people drowned in the flood. But what we are seeing now is flood-related deaths from disease, and the incident I heard of today, where a family returned to their homes in Umarkot, and their two little girls went outside to play and fell into muddy water and were killed. So,
very unfortunate,
it's those stories that are heartbreaking.
Of course, there are many heartbreaking stories. And what are the challenges once the flood waters recede? What are the lessons for the future, and how to deal with many of those issues? We'll talk about that when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Witness with Quatrina. I'm Waqas Rafique, filling in for Quatrina. Tonight we are talking about the problem of floods in interior Sindh and also parts of Balochistan. So we begin this portion of the program by talking about that. And Mr. Damini, are we neglecting Balochistan? According to the figures that I have, 4 districts in Balochistan have been affected by floods. What's the scale of the problem there?
Probably the number of districts affected are more than 4. 4 maybe are those with the more severe damages. Anyway, there are some people, according to the data we received, there are reported 23 people died, and then about 69,000 people are interested by floods, and 7,600 houses has been damaged or destroyed. And we have about 5,000 hectares of crops destroyed. So the proportion is much less than in Sindh as a dimension. But of course, people are suffering exactly the same problem of looking for help, looking for early recovery after that. Right. And we are including in our plans to serve Balochistan as well.
Right. And how do you plan to serve the problem that Mr. Damiani is talking about in Balochistan, Mr. Paulsson? And also, could you talk to us about any problems that your agency faces there in coordination, in liaison at all?
Problems we are facing in coordination. Well, it's always, like I said, it's a large effort to make this happen. Coordination structures have been set up and are operational. Now, it's also very important for the various actors on the ground to provide the information on where they operate and what type of assistance they provide, exactly like I mentioned before, so we don't overlap or miss out on areas that we should have been covering.
Okay, and Quatrina, are you coming to find out about the problem in Balochistan? Are you listening about what's happening in Balochistan when it comes to the floods there? What are you hearing?
Well, because what we are hearing right now, as I said, I've been traveling interior Sindh for a while now. Everybody is really concerned, obviously, about their own area, their own district. And a person sitting in Mirpur Khas is not interested in knowing about the problems of somebody sitting in Sangar. Obviously, they're suffering here on their own. So yes, Balochistan is something that we need to be looking at, even as media. One of the points that I think I raised early on in this program was simply that I think the media needs to be doing a lot more. They're doing a lot. There's no doubt about it. But everybody needs to do just a lot more than we have been. And I'm the first one to point the blame at ourselves. I think that we, as I said, dropped the ball, but we picked up with it. I think all channels, including our own, we are really on this right now.
Yeah.
The problem that Mr. Paulsson pointed out of logistics, that is actually huge, because most of the interior part of Sindh has really narrow roads. In many cases, the roads have been badly damaged by the rain. In some cases, it's still flooded. And so it becomes really problematic to go from one area to another. You may have land access into Mirpur Khas, but for example, a relief agency coming into Mirpur Khas may not be able to reach the people who need it the most, because from the road then onwards you need boats. And you can't really bring boats from Karachi and drive them behind you and then use the boats when needed. So it is a logistical nightmare. There's no doubt about it. I am fully aware of the fact that the Pakistan Army and the Pakistan Navy are flying aerial food drops.
Yeah.
They are the ones who have those facilities. No other organization in Pakistan has those. Those are being used. So in all, everybody is doing what they're saying. But again, Mr. Paulsson is absolutely right when he says we have to make sure that everybody coordinates so that there's no overlap or there's no gap.
And Quatrina, we're heading towards the end of the program. I have a couple of questions for our guests in Islamabad. But first, I want to ask you, I'm sure you want to talk about the specific problems that women are facing when floods hit. Of course, there are many pregnant women, and medical help to them, of course, becomes crucial and very urgent, right?
It is absolutely critical. In one village where I went, I was told that one woman had died in childbirth. Many newborn babies have died. I have seen several pregnant women who will give birth over the next month, 2 months. That's unfortunately, life does not come to a standstill, and births and deaths continue to happen. We need gynecologists out here. I do know that the UN Women, the UN organization that used to be known as UNIFEM, they have started their programs in Sindh. Gynecologists are going out to try and assist people. We will also be needing inoculations. That's going to be critical. And so I do know that some work has started on that front. And that will be hopefully moving faster, because there's special organizations dedicated to doing that. And I've been speaking with them, and I know that the work has started in 5 districts of Sindh already.
All right. And Mr. Damini, the amount of aid that has been asked for by the UN is $357 million. Like I said in the beginning, it's for the next 3 months. So I'm curious, at this point of time, would you be able to talk to us about the time frame? Can we say that when would the situation, can we talk about the time when the situation of the flood-affected areas in Sindh would improve?
Well, we're looking at, of course, please,
yeah.
go ahead.
The flash appeal that was just launched last Sunday is intended to cover the first month or so, or I would say 3 months, like you said, but is subject to revision within 30 days. And why this? Because we are still acquiring data, information for actions that will last longer, not just immediate relief, but just looking a little bit further. And this will happen sometime mid-October, when a new appeal will be launched and will take care of more aspects, which not just food or immediate relief distribution. What will be, we don't know. Today, yet the answer to the first appeal, to the flash appeal, has been almost nil. And so we are confident that there will be some interest from the donors.
Right. And Mr. Paulsson, if I may ask you, what do you think is the biggest challenge in the immediate future, now that we know that the floodwaters have already begun to recede? Or let me put it this way, what do you fear the most now that the floodwaters have begun to recede already?
Well, like I said, and I think we need to stress this, we have immediate needs that need to be addressed. And in order to do so, we need the funding. Today, we're very happy to have received our first donation to the World Food Programme from the government of Japan of $4 million. That's a fantastic start, and we're extremely grateful for that. Now, our portion of the appeal is $133 million, and that's for the relief assistance for the next 4 months. So there's a long way to go, and that is crucial that funding comes through immediately.